Welcome back to Behind the Curtain of Leadership. So, in the last video, we started talking about the practical definition of leadership, in the real world. In this video, I'm going to be talking about good and bad leaders. Now, sometimes we don't like to use the words good and bad, and maybe we'll say different variations of leaders, or we'll say, well, less good or effective or less effective, and that's fine. But regardless of what we call them, we have to be honest about the differences. In my career, I have had thousands and thousands of one-off conversations with people to better understand what they think about their leaders. What works, what doesn't work, what they respond to, what they don't respond to. What they really want from these leaders, and the difference between the good ones and the bad ones. So, let me ask you a question: how can you tell the difference between a good leader and a bad leader? And more importantly, which kind of leader do you think you are? Good leader? Not so good leader? Mediocre leader? How do you know? Who tells you whether you're a good leader or a bad leader? And remember, when I say leader, I'm talking about anybody who creates a positive emotional connection and inspires others to be better, whether they do it intentionally or unintentionally. It could be different levels of management: a business owner, a supervisor, a team lead, a field supervisor, coworker, friend, parent, coach. It could be any of those. But back to the question: how can you tell the difference between a good and a bad leader? So let's look at it this way. How easy is it to describe the worst leader you've ever been around? Pretty easy, right? Think back in your life or your career about a boss or someone in a leadership role that was just not very good. And you'll start thinking about all the interactions, all the times when they didn't care about you, about what you thought, they didn't listen to your ideas, your future, your goals. Maybe they weren't engaged, and honestly, maybe they were just kind of a jerk. Ask any group of people this question. Just say, describe the worst leader you've ever been around. And in less than 2 minutes, they're going to shout out a whole list of examples why they weren't very good. Why is that? Well, it's because it's easy to remember bad leadership when we've seen it and lived through it. Why is that? Well, it's because they've made that key emotional impact we talked about in the last video, but they made it in a negative way. These are the leaders that just can't quite figure it out. Their words, their communication, their actions, they just don't have the same appeal, and they just seem hollow or disingenuous. They may seem a little disconnected from the team, or the team just doesn't quite buy into them for whatever reason. They simply don't make that connection. You follow me? Now look at the other side. What about the best leader you've ever been around? One you remember, one you respect. Ask that same group of people this question, and you'll likely get, 5, maybe 10 reasons why they think they were the best leader. And then it gets harder. It takes longer to think about what you remember and what made them a good leader. Why is this? They also made that key emotional impact on you, but in a positive way. And it's easy to feel that connection in your heart, but it's a little harder to put that into words. Because good leaders do so many things effortlessly, and naturally they become common and normal. It's what you've come to expect from them because it's who they are. These leaders don't have to think about saying the wrong thing at the wrong time. They're confident in what they believe because they know in their hearts they care about the people they serve, and whatever they say will be honest and genuine. And people can sense this. These leaders make you feel better about yourself, about what you're doing, what you're struggling with, what the challenges you're facing, and believe you can overcome those challenges. In both cases, I said these leaders made either a positive or a negative emotional impact on you, and you remembered that impact. People will always remember something with an emotional impact, positive or negative, over something that doesn't. Why is this? Well, it may sound a little strange or goofy to you because emotions and feelings are registered in your heart, and you never forget them. So think about the first time you were in love. Okay, think about that person in that situation. You'll quickly have an emotional reaction and you'll remember what that felt like. Now, this may fade as you get older, but you will never, never really forget it. And you don't know this in your brain, but you feel it in your heart. It's the same with the emotional impact from a good or a bad leader. Now, this is a very big deal, so don't blow it off. And if it sounds soft, you got to think about this. It's a critical aspect of understanding people, and we'll spend more time on that in future video. So, what makes someone a good leader? What makes them great? What makes them memorable? What makes them register in your heart and you never forget them? That's kind of the question. So to answer the question, I think we need to understand what people want from their leaders. I mean, does that make sense? I mean, so what do people want from their leaders? So let me read you a quote from Lou Holtz on leadership. And he said, leadership begins with recognizing that everybody needs four things: something to do, someone to love, something to hope for, and something to believe in. Strategic plans don't excite anybody. Dreams excite people. And every employee, every team member wants to know the same thing. Do you really care about me? Every successful organization shows its people that they genuinely matter. Now, did you see how he didn't say anything about motivation or intellectual concepts? He only talked about inspiration and emotional concepts. So how does this fit in with you and your leadership? Are you doing any of this now? Do you talk about these kind of things with your team? Do you have any idea what the people on your team even want in their lives or their jobs or their careers? What might inspire them? What's important to them as a person? And if you don't, why not? And maybe you didn't understand this before now. Or maybe it doesn't fit in with what you're being asked to do as a leader. Think about the expectations of your role in leadership at work right now. What are your main goals? Drive revenue, profit, grow the business, attract new customers, create a world-class work environment, be the employer of choice, be known as the biggest company in your industry or your market. Does any of that sound familiar? Now think back to the Lou Holtz quote. And even if you do ask questions to understand your team, do you really care? Or do you only care enough to get them to help you accomplish your goals? So here's my answer to the difference between good and not so good leaders from what I've learned in my career being around hundreds of leaders and teams and cultures in different parts of this country. In addition to the positive emotional connection and inspiring others to be better, the best leaders care more about helping their teammates reach their goals than the leader cares about reaching their own goals. Now think about that. So how can the leader care more about someone else's goals than their own goals? Well, it's simply because these leaders know that if they help others achieve what's important to them, they will in turn help the team what's important to the team, which is the main goal of the leader. I mean, just think about that one for a minute. Has anyone ever told you this in simple language? Did you ever think about this way? And this is an example of what I said in my introduction video, is that people don't tell you these things. They just don't. You have to learn them. And it takes years to learn them. And that's why I'm telling you now. One of the most important qualities I've seen consistently in good leaders is they genuinely care for others. A lot of leaders try to fake it, but it's easy to spot this in those people. They'll say they do, but they really don't. And it's the same with your company. Many companies say they care about their people, but they really don't. To be honest, most leaders out there right now who truly care about their team members usually don't talk about it directly, but if you pay attention and spend time around them, it shows in their words and their actions. And those around these leaders, they feel it. It's that positive emotional connection I talked about in an earlier video. Look, if you're in a leadership role today and you don't care that much about the people on your team, you need to own that reality. You need to also accept that unless you do care about these people as people, you'll never be great. You'll never be memorable. You just won't. You just won't be one of those leaders. You might be effective at growing a business and achieving your personal goals, but you'll be remembered as that person who got what they wanted but didn't care about the people around them, and you'll never be remembered or thought of as a true or great leader. And the funny thing is, if you're one who doesn't really care about others, while you may not realize it, every other person around you knows this about you. They know this is true. You don't have to tell them. You can't hide it because it's something they feel in their hearts, not something they know in their brains. So to wrap this up on good and bad leaders, remember, the best leaders do three key things. They make a positive emotional impact or connection on others. They inspire those around them to be better tomorrow than they were today. And they care more about their team members' goals than their own goals. I appreciate you watching this today, and I truly hope you pick something up that might help you or somebody that you know, give you something to think about. We can all improve in our roles in our lives, and sometimes it's just one little thing that makes a difference. Sometimes it's just a simple concept or a simple idea that causes us to rethink our perspective, rethink what we think is true based on our belief system. Anyway, so if you're interested, check out my website, or there's a link below to my book on Amazon. And in the next video, we're going to talk a little bit about when you question if you're in the right role as a leader. It's kind of the imposter syndrome. And just remember, each one of us is first and foremost a leader of our own lives, and all this material matters to everyone. Thanks a lot, and we'll see you next time.